Let me get to your question, Yolanda B. So, am I surprised? Okay, pull up. Are you surprised that Harbaugh was not fired after the loss to the Bills? I want y'all to answer this below too. Yolanda B, curious to hear your answer, as well, since you didn't answer ask the question. I don't know if there's anything that the Ravens do that surprises me at this point, to be honest. Especially when it comes to retaining people and like kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of being stuck in their ways. I'm not surprised that Harbaugh was not fired. Um, like I talked about after the game, I think there's a whole nother discussion that needs to be talked about when it comes to John Harbaugh and this team. And the reason I say that is, you've been the coach since 2008, and there's something to be said about longevity. That's obvious, right? You've been the coach for a long, long time, and I think there is something to be said about longevity. But at the same time, you can't just keep doing the same things and expecting different results. That's not how it works. Um, and when I say that, I mean you can't keep. This has been what, 7 years of the same thing. Realistically, I think there's 2 years that don't count, right? There's 2 years that don't count. In this regard, right? There's the year that there's the 2 years Lamar was injured, right? Those are the years that don't count to me. Lamar being out with the bone bruise, and Tyler Huntley ends up playing against the Bengals. That doesn't. I mean, that doesn't count against. I don't think that counts against anybody really. Uh, you're put in a tough situation, and then if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking the game against the Bills. Well, Lamar didn't finish the game. I think because Lamar didn't finish the game, even though your team still didn't play well. I don't know if you judge it as harshly as you would if Lamar finished the game. Yolanda said, I was a bit surprised, especially since we made it to the AFC Championship game the year before and couldn't make it at least back this year. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think it's just the Ravens though. Like, I think some other maybe, and I don't want to. It don't matter. I think sometimes, I don't know if the Ravens are as cutthroat as other organizations are. To be honest, I think, and I said this in my instant reaction video. I think the Ravens are a good bubble team right now, right? Unfortunately, right? They're going to be in the conversation every single year. They look really good in the regular season. They honestly look like a team that could be a Super Bowl team. Like, I'm talking about multiple, not just one Super Bowl, multiple Super Bowls. But they can't make it over the hump, so they always end up being a bubble team, which means Harbaugh will never get touched because you're doing just well enough for you to kind of skate by. And they always say winning is the best deodorant. They always say winning covers up a lot of things. And because winning covers up a lot of things, you really don't get a chance like to really view Harbaugh in a harsh lens. Like, and that's why I gotta kind of give credit to the Ravens content creators out there, Yolanda B, Sip the Tally, Rogue Pod, Raven C, TTB, Engraven. If I'm missing somebody, let me make sure you put them in the comments because I know I'm missing a bunch of y'all. 410 Sports Talk, all of them, like all our Ravens content creators, because what's different about being a content creator versus being maybe a TV personality is, number one, we don't have a producer that's telling us to shut up and don't talk about that, right? Number two, we're fans first, right? We're fans first. So because we're fans first, we have that kind of knee-jerk reaction to things, but also we see everything, right? We see what's going on Wired. We see what's going on, at least in a little bit of the locker room that we can see. We see the mutinies going on, but the mutinies from before with Harbaugh, right? We see the same mistakes happening over and over and over again. And sometimes, to give the TV personalities a little bit of slack, to cut them a little bit of slack here, sometimes they don't get a chance to watch every single snap like Ravens fans are going to get to. So that's why, you got to support your Ravens content creators because of that, because we're going to have a different perspective than those guys are going to have. And we probably going to have the more real perspective than anything. And back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean, I expected to make it to the AFC Championship game this year. At least, honestly, the way the Ravens were playing, and even, I didn't get a chance to mention this last week because I couldn't get the video to pop up, but Lamar Jackson was talking about this in the Steelers game, and he was just saying, like, I'm not trying to force anything, I'm not going to force. He literally said, I'm gonna paraphrase here, but he literally said, I'm not going to force it. It's either a touchdown or incompletion. I ain't throwing, I'm not throwing interceptions. I'm not doing that. And he said that against the Steelers. And I just felt like this team felt different, right? I felt like Lamar was just locked in a little bit differently than usual. Now, mistakes are going to happen. Even when you're locked in, mistakes can happen, right? And I mean, like we talked about before, the second half, Lamar Jackson was practically perfect. It's just everybody else wasn't perfect. So it makes your mistakes that much bigger in the construct of the game, because if Mark Andrews catches that football and we go to overtime and you win that game in overtime, some of these discussions we're not having, right? Some of these discussions we're not having because you found a way to win the game. The one thing I can say about the Chiefs, especially, I think the Bills have done a little bit this year too. But the one thing you can definitely say about the Chiefs is it don't matter how good they are, by hook or by crook, they're gonna win games. By hook or by crook, they're going to win games. Right? We saw it all season long. Let's be honest. The Chiefs are not that good. They're simply not. Right? And it's hard. It's funny. I was talking to my wife about this. It's hard to explain why the Chiefs are not that good, right? To like more casual football fans, right? Or people who just happen to watch it when you watching it or whatever. It's hard to explain because the record says what the record says. You are what your record says you are, and that's a lot of what casual fans believe too. And at the end of the day, you're still finding ways to win. So yes, skill wise, the Chiefs aren't as good as they've been before. Scheme wise, the Chiefs probably aren't as good as they've been before, right? But they find ways to win, and that's one of the no matter what, that's one of the biggest mistakes that the Ravens have to figure out how to overcome is when you get down in the game, everybody can't fold over, right? And when I say fold over, sometimes it ain't even your fault, right? But everybody got to, when Lamar Jackson throws an interception, the rest of the team got to step up and rally behind him. You can't have interceptions, penalties, fumbles, drop passes, and expect to win because and the reason I say that, and the reason I say that is because let's just be honest. Look at the Chiefs' very first Super Bowl run back in 2019. The Chiefs were down by double digits in every game. Came back and won all four of them. I'm trying to think. Did they play 4 games that year? At least 3. I mean, they came back and they were down. Regardless, it don't matter. If it don't matter if it's 4 or 3, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs were down by multiple possessions. Specifically, I think it was 10 in a variety of those games. Every single game of those playoffs, Super Bowl included, and they find ways to win games. To this day, still do the same thing. Mistakes do not bother the Chiefs. And that's where the Ravens got to get to. That's what championship teams do, right? Championship teams, successful people, successful businesses, regardless of what it is, if you're going to be a success in anything, it's never going to be a linear process. It's never going to be a linear process. And the Ravens have to figure out, and I don't know if that is a coaching change that's going to help that. But the Ravens have to figure out what they do wrong. They have to. And how to fix it. How to fix it specifically. Because for 17 weeks of the regular season, the Ravens can play like world beaters. But we all know it's going to be 2 or 3, more so this year, 4 or 5 games that the Ravens lose that they had no business losing. Right? They looked flat. They showed up flat. They didn't look well coached, for lack of a better term. And the Ravens have to snap out of that. They have to. And you know, I think that's the biggest thing. So kind of long story short, or short story long, I guess, in this regard. I wasn't surprised that Harbaugh wasn't fired, but I think a lot of us a lot of us who talk about the Ravens, we probably were a little we probably are calling for it more now because we've been calling for it the last couple years. Because how do you lose in the same ways over and over again, specifically in the playoffs when the lights are the brightest, right? You can't get your team calmed down enough for them to get right. Lamar Jackson was not losing that game. Like, and you know, I know, you know, they want to put the blame on Lamar because he had the fumble and the interception early in the game, but I don't know if I saw it, you know, and I was so excited to see how the second half was going to play out because the fans were on Lamar. They were on Lamar going into the locker room, and he was like, okay. He was like, okay. You know, he was like he was smiling at him. He was like, okay, I got something for y'all. Now he didn't say that. I'm just saying that's what it looked like. It looked like one of those like competitive, like, oh yeah, I got something for y'all in the second half. That's all right. This game ain't over. And Lamar Jackson came out and played a perfect second half. Right. Lamar Jackson didn't Lamar Jackson was calm, right? Lamar Jackson was calm at that point in time. Right. Now everybody else, specifically, you know, and I hate to keep piling on a dude, but specifically Mark Andrews obviously wasn't. Something was up. Something was wrong. It was an off game for him. Dude ain't fumbled since 2019. I think against the Titans. Like, I mean, that's what I'm gonna say. And I mean, you said, you know, kind of back to what you said. You said you were a bit surprised, and I mean, yeah, but you know, kind of like we said before, you're in the divisional round again. You know, and the hard part too. I'll put it to you like this, and I'm gonna wrap it up. Uh, the hard part about it too, especially for the Ravens, I think it would be different, and you got to look at it, you know, from all sides, right? Imagine being a front office. Imagine being the owner of the Ravens, right? You got this guy who's been the head coach for 15 or so years, right? He's won a Super Bowl for you, so obviously he's got that pedigree. He's more than likely going to, I mean, let's be honest, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And you're literally this close from winning all of your playoff games, right? With the exception of the Bills in 2019. Not 2019, 2020. With the exception of the Bills in 2020, you're this close. I'm talking about you are in the Titans game, you're a little bit of time away from coming back in that game. In in the Bengals game, in the Bengals game, you are Tyler Huntley not jumping over the top and just going for a regular QB sneak from winning that game. And Lamar might be back next week, right? And even in the Chargers game, like, you know, we're talking about time. If you had a minute more, you probably come back in that game. You're one possession down. If you can get one stop, that's another part of it too. In the Titans game and in the Chargers game in 2018 and 2019 respectively, you are one defensive stop away from getting the ball back, and your offense has all the momentum. Right? Last year, if Zay Flowers doesn't jump up to try to get the touchdown and just hits the ground, you get a couple more cracks at scoring that touchdown, and you're right back in the game against the Chiefs for a chance to win the Super Bowl. This year, I mean, it was a variety of mistakes, but specifically, you're going to look back on the 2-point conversion. Perfect play call, perfect execution, just the catch wasn't there. That's it. Just the catch wasn't there. So, like, I think for front office members, honestly, I think for the front office, I think it's hard. I think for the front office, it's hard to justify firing John Harbaugh when you're literally this close to being in not only multiple AFC championship games, but possibly multiple Super Bowls.